Welcome to the Positive Thread Podcast. I'm Heather McConaughey, nutritionist and mindset coach, podcast host, and former registered nurse. I have a passion for empowering millennial women because, well, I'm the oldest of the millennials. Think of me like your big millennial sister. Every week, I'll bring you an interview, topic, or Q&A session that will inspire you to care for your body, mind, and soul. I believe that when women prioritize self-care, everyone wins. If that sounds good to you, you're in the right place. Are you ready? Let's start the show. Kate, welcome to the podcast. I'm so excited to have you.
Thanks, Heather. I'm so excited to be here.
So let's just get started. I would love to just introduce you to my audience a little bit. So you're a nutrition coach and educator, and I just found out that you currently live in Mexico, which is amazing. So can you just tell us a little bit about you and kind of where you're at in your life right now?
Yeah, so nutrition coach and educator. That is what I do. I own a nutrition coaching business, and I work just in like highly individualized nutrition coaching. And this is April, I think, was year 6. So I've been doing it for a while, and it's exciting, and I love it still. I love it just as much. And it used to be just me, hence the name Kate Lyman Nutrition. And then like about 3 years ago, I kind of started building a team. So now I work with this team of incredible nutrition coaches alongside me. I know I'm biased about that, but they are amazing, and we're all such good friends, and we all work so closely together. So it's great. And then, my husband and I actually just moved to Mexico in January. We live in Oaxaca, Mexico, and it's just been kind of like a dream for me for a while to move to Mexico. I love the food. I love the people. I love the language and the culture and everything. So the past 2-ish years, my goal has been to, get my business to a point where we could just relocate. So we've done that, and it's a freaking blast. We love it here. We live up in the mountains. It's just wonderful. It's so much fun. And I love my job, and I love the flexibility it gives me to do things like live in Mexico.
Yes, amazing. Being like a digital nomad and kind of being able to work from anywhere is such a blessing of this industry. Can you tell us how you got into nutrition coaching?
Yeah, so I definitely never thought that would be my job, my career at all. When I was in undergrad, I studied exercise science, honestly, with the intention of going into like the medical field. And then as I was in the middle of applications for physician assistant programs, I kind of just I'd wanted to do this since like 5th grade, kind of just had like this change of mind and wanted to work in prevention. So I had taken nutrition courses. I'd been interested in nutrition. And actually at the same time, since high school, I had been a CrossFit coach. So I'd taught some like little nutrition seminars and talked nutrition with new clients that came in and kind of used the knowledge I'd gained from school. And then I went to school and got my master's in public health. It was an amazing experience. I'm so grateful for my time in that program because it was really impactful in so many ways. But I kind of honed in on health behavior theory and behavior change, and specifically behavior change in nutrition. And so I'd kind of like started working with individuals more in like a one-on-one capacity with nutrition coaching. And then I started to be like, maybe I should charge for this. So I kind of, as I was in grad school, built a website, built a business, started working with clients, most of whom came from the gym I was working at. And it just kind of grew from there. So I love school. I went on to start a PhD program in social and behavioral science in public health nutrition. It's a ridiculously long title, but kind of came to a crossroads where I wasn't a great fit with the program, but loved KLM, loved my nutrition coaching and what I was doing. So I left the program, took coaching full time. So it's been like a really good mix of personal experience with my own nutrition and then working with clients in like this fitness capacity through CrossFit and other gyms, and then also education from school. So yeah, like that kind of all came into just loving working one-on-one with individuals in this capacity of helping them understand their nutrition better and working towards sustainable changes. But then also I really love to educate and teach. And like, that's kind of like the public health part of me really likes to also make this very overwhelming industry of information a lot more concise and a lot more easy to consume and a lot more clear, because there's a lot to navigate out there.
Yes, there's always a huge glut of information. It can make it really difficult to know what to do. And I love helping people sift through that as well. We have a lot of similarities, I think, because we both
kind of have a medical background. Like I was a nurse and I wanted to help people more with preventative care because I was like seeing them get sick in the hospital. I didn't coach CrossFit, but I did it for 2.5 years. That really started me on my fitness and nutrition journey and down that rabbit hole of learning about nutrition. So I love hearing those similarities. So let's do our rapid fire section so everyone can get to know you a little bit better. So are you ready?
I'm excited.
Okay. What's your favorite self-care activity?
Hiking or being outside in nature.
I love it. Y'all can't see this, but she's wearing a Patagonia jacket. So she is legit. Okay, so this might be redundant, but you have to pick a different answer. So what's your favorite workout?
Right now, I'm really into mountain biking. So I'm going to go with that.
Ooh, fun. I love that. That must be so good for your legs.
It trashes me. It like wrecks me like no other. And so I kind of like it for that reason. Like to be so humbled after every time I go out is kind of, it's nice in a way.
I love that. Okay, favorite meal?
Tacos.
Like any particular tacos, like al pastor or like chicken?
Yes, I love tacos al pastor. And like a sad little side note is that Oaxaca has amazing food. It's like known as this like culinary center of Mexico, but tacos aren't part of the dishes here. So like there are tacos, you can find them, but it's more like mole and other corn-based dishes. And so the tacos aren't as good as like Mexico City, but I would still say like some good al pastor tacos are my favorite.
I love it. Yeah, I'm in Austin, Texas, and we have some great al pastor.
You guys have great tacos. Yeah, I'm jealous of that.
The breakfast taco. That's like our thing. Okay, great. And last book you read or a book you're currently reading?
I just this morning finished Talking with Strangers by Malcolm Gladwell. It was great. Really great book.
What was your biggest takeaway from that?
My biggest takeaway, oh man, I was just texting a friend about this morning, but it talked a lot about this concept of coupling, how like some of our actions and our behaviors work together to produce a certain outcome. And it talked a lot about some like almost more triggering topics like suicide, sexual assault, police interactions and things like that. But it was just like a really great commentary on like the social happenings that influence all of the circumstances around us. I really like behavioral psychology. So it talked a lot about that, but in a really lovely, I don't know if you've read any other Malcolm Gladwell. He's like an amazing story. Yeah, he's an amazing storyteller. So it talked about such relevant current events and a lot of cool stuff about like Cuban spies and like FBI type scenarios. So it was like really intriguing, but also very informative. Highly recommend.
Okay, I'm definitely going to have to check that out. What was it called again?
Talking with Strangers.
Talking with Strangers. Okay, great. And I'll link it in the show notes for everybody. So if you want to check that book out, you can. Okay, great. And then just what's one personal goal you have for this year? So not related to your business, but just something personal you're working on.
Yeah, this is a fun question because my goal for so long has been to move to Mexico. And so we got here and we were like, now what? You know, but actually I do have a personal goal and it is to climb this volcano that is very, very tall. It's crazy altitude. I think it ends at about 18,000 feet and it's called Pico de Orizaba and it's here in Mexico. And so like, that's my goal by the end of the year. I want to summit this volcano.
Wow. That sounds amazing. I'm going to have to watch your stories on Instagram so I can see summiting the volcanoes.
Yeah. So. Tentatively it's happening in November. So we'll see.
Okay. Amazing. Well, I brought you on today because I wanted to talk to you about undereating and macros. I know this is a topic that you are an expert in, and I see it happen so much with the women who come to work with me. It's almost shocking how many women are undereating, inappropriately eating. So I'm really excited to talk to you about this. So just to get us started, can you really just like define what undereating is and how often you see it as a coach?
Yes, this is not a phenomenon because it's too common to be called that. But this is something that when I work with a client or we start with any clients, and I will say this extends to males almost as much as it extends to females, chronic undereating or a new client being chronically underfed is generally the product of them dieting for so long, like years or sometimes decades. Like that's not crazy to work with someone in their 40s, 50s who have been dieting for decades. So those who have been chronically dieting are often chronically underfed because they've been trying the classic, like eat less, move more for so long. And so when this shows up or how this shows up is in this client trying to work towards usually fat loss goals and feeling like they can't get there. And, it kind of shows up in like fatigue and low energy and poor recovery, but also in a lot of issues with adherence, which that's like kind of a strong word to use, but like them being so restrictive that they kind of move into these patterns of like binging or overeating. So adherence isn't there as in like the sense of eating consistently, because they've kind of moved into these patterns of like being restricted for too long and feeling like they're always relying on willpower.
It's something that I see a lot with clients is they'll come to me and they'll just be like under eating their basal metabolic rate, especially women who are heavier. I'd say a lot of women over like 200 pounds. I see a lot of them under eat, and I see a lot of them struggle with appetite, but then, they're like cycling back into like overeating times as well. So let's just dive into what are some of the signs and symptoms that you might be under eating as a woman?
Yeah, so I mentioned a few of these, but like to dig in a little deeper, like a lot of fatigue and low energy, like you are not fueling your body adequately. And you feel that in the sense of like lacking energy. You feel that in the sense of maybe you're not making gains in the gym. And I don't mean just like bro gains, like, upping your squat, but like you're not feeling good. You're not progressing in any type of training you're doing. And your recovery from that training is really poor. So like, you're very sore for a long time. You feel like you're not recovering between sessions. And then a lot of it is like this, it's a lot of frustration. I feel like a lot of what we see is frustration. Like, hey, I'm doing everything right, but I can't get to my goal. And that bit about adherence, like struggling to be consistent in your nutrition because you are so chronically underfed.
I feel that like some women too, I struggle as a coach sometimes to get them to eat more. Have you ever encountered a client where they're chronically under eating, but they're just like scared to start eating more because they think they're going to gain weight? And like, how do you coach them through that?
Yeah, I would say just about everyone. Just about everyone who's been chronically underfed has fears about eating more. And I make it so clear. And sometimes making something so clear requires saying it about 40,000 times before they really like have a little trust in what you're saying. Like, my goal for you, new client who is so chronically underfed, who has been dieting for so long without seeing results, is that we get you to a place where you feel healthier, you have better energy, and you are eating more so that we can then work on fast, efficient, sustainable fat loss. So we can then work towards your goals in a way where you're not miserable, where you're not overly restricting, where you're not feeling like crap every day. And my goal is never across this whole spectrum of what we're going to do for you to gain weight or feel uncomfortable with your body. Sure, we may see fluctuations in the scale, but we're going to see that all the time, no matter what. The goal is not that you're gaining body fat, that you're moving up several sizes. The goal is that we're slowly working on building up your intake daily to a point where your body feels safe and comfortable to then pursue your fat loss goals. A lot of it is talking about the long game. Honestly, like the long game is still, you have these fat loss goals, but because you have been trying for them for so long, because you've been spinning your wheels for so long, we're going to first have to take a little break and give your body what it needs so we can then create these sustainable changes. Sometimes it requires putting into perspective, say we take 3 to 4 months eating at maintenance, and that's like on the longer end of things. Think about how short of a time period that is compared to the 2 decades you've been trying to diet. Like sometimes we just have to put that in perspective. Like 3 to 4 months is nothing. 5 to 6 months at maintenance is nothing. When on the other side, the goals you've been working towards forever, and those in a sustainable and healthy and safe and non-restrictive manner.
Yeah, if you're listening to this and you have been dieting for years or decades and you've worked with a coach, maybe you've worked with me, and I've said like, hey, you're under eating, like I really want you to take this to heart because it's so important that you eat enough. And I've actually had to kind of let a few clients go, Kate, because like I couldn't take their money anymore because they weren't following what I was telling them to do. Like my integrity, I was like, I can't keep working with you. Like, because you are basically refusing to eat more. And like, I can't do anything. I can't help you lose weight. Like I can't cut calories, and I think it can be really challenging as a coach to sometimes work with people who've been in that state. So are there any other like mindset things that you recommend to those people who are just like really struggling with their fear of gaining weight, or anything that's been effective for you?
Yeah, I think we talk a lot about like good foods versus bad foods. Like, hey, I understand that you feel scared of more food, but can we talk a little more about like, is it specific foods that you fear? Is it carbs? And if it's carbs, like, let's talk about why carbs aren't the devil. Let's talk about why carbs have been like unfairly demonized, but they're actually really beneficial. And then we make those jumps. We make those increases. I can't even say jumps because it sounds too dramatic. We make those increases very slowly in a way that feels really doable, And I think just like letting them know I'm really, really proud of them for the small steps they're taking is helpful. But also letting them know, like continually letting them know, like the goal isn't weight gain. The goal isn't going backwards. The goal is like, it's the same goal. We're just taking a little detour so we can do it better.
Yeah, I love that. I think that's great. Like, and if you're listening, you can even implement these things for yourself. So like if you don't have a coach, you can like acknowledge yourself for the things that you're proud of yourself for, like each and every week, and eating more. And I think remembering that like eating more doesn't mean you have to go binge eat pizza and fries, right? Like you can eat more vegetables, you can eat more protein, you can eat more broccoli. So, increasing the quality of what you're eating, I think is so important. So let's talk a little bit more about like how to correct it, like nitty gritty. So we're increasing calories to maintenance. So like, how do you kind of calculate those calories or determine where somebody should be at so that they're maintaining for a period of months?
Yeah. So like usually I'm meeting them where they're at and starting there. So say someone, and like these are going to be all arbitrary numbers because we know there's so many factors at play, right? With where someone quote unquote should be or whatever. But say someone is, like their maintenance should probably be around 2,000 calories, but they're consistently eating 1,600 and not seeing any progress because they've been eating 1,600 calories or less for so long. So I'm probably going to meet them around 1,650 calories and say, hey, let's nail down a consistent week here. And that does one of two things. That shows me that like one, maybe after a week or two there, they really are eating that amount and not in a deficit, like they have been chronically under eating for so long. Or two, without consistent tracking, they have been under eating some days and compensating with a big overeating other days. That usually means maybe they're not eating consistently around 1,600 calories. Maybe their average is about 1,900 calories. And so we're going to work on more consistency day to day, fueling them more day to day so that these like binges or nighttime overeating or like this feeling out of control and this like restrict and binge cycle stops. And we're going to focus more on consistency from there. And then we're still going to increase a little bit up until they get to where they're at and feeling good. And then we're going to hang there for a little bit to make sure they feel ready and their body feels ready to go into a cut. And like I said, the goal isn't weight gain. So if we're saying consistent weight gain, and by weight gain, I mean not just the scale moving up, but like changes in how your clothes fit or photos or measurements, etc., then we know, okay, that's a surplus. So like that's above maintenance. So we're going to hang around maintenance for longer. It's hard to say, like, it's hard to hash it all out because we're taking it week by week. But I think that's the great thing. Like, right, we're taking it week by week, and say 1 week doesn't feel great and we can adjust and move on with a different trajectory the next week.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is that people kind of shelve the weight loss goal initially if they have been plateaued or they're struggling or they're under dieting. They have to understand that they can't just immediately lose the weight that they want to lose and that their body is not functioning quite properly. Do you do any kind of like hormone testing with people, or what's your philosophy on a lot of the content out there now where it's like, oh, it's not just calories in, calories out. And I see a lot of kind of conflicting opinions about this. Like I follow a sports physique PhD researcher who's like, no, it's calories in, calories out. But then I also follow some functional health coaches who are like, no, it's not calories in, calories out. It's like hormone optimization. So what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I don't do any like hormone tests or anything like that. Honestly, it's beyond my scope. But there's like so many polarized opinions out there. And the reality is we can't thwart energy balance. Like we can't get around the fact that calories in, calories out matters. But we can take into account that sometimes diagnoses like hypothyroidism or PCOS or any other hormone irregularities, Hashimoto, exactly, do contribute to differences in metabolic rate, right? Like, someone with PCOS may have a lower metabolic output than someone of the same weight, height, age, etc., without PCOS. So we're going to take that into account, but it doesn't mean that they, thwart the laws of thermodynamics. Like calories in, calories out still matters. And often, I don't know if I should even say this because I can't totally back it up all the way, but there's a lot of correlation that I see between these hormone irregularities or hormone issues and those who have been chronically underfed for so long. So a lot of times we see them feel better and have more energy and feel like a healthier digestive system because they're not in this chronic state of restriction.
Yeah, it's so important. I want you listening to really take home that it's both, right? Like I love what you said. You can't thwart the laws of thermodynamics, but there's also some other things that can also be at play. I have had OBGYNs refer me patients, postmenopausal women who I can't lose the weight. So they come in for hormone tests and the doctor's like, all your hormones are normal. And then they come to me and I'm like, yeah, it's your nutrition. Oh, you're under eating, right? Shocker, a lot of women over 50 undereat. And then, this client was able to lose 15 pounds super easy. So it's not just your hormones, but you need to pay attention to the whole picture. Let's talk a little bit about macros. So I'm a big fan of macros because it's what transformed my body when I was so stuck and confused. And I also love macros because it gives you a lot of food freedom. So can you tell us, your approach to macros, what you love about it, and then we'll dive into some more kind of specifics.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I kind of take a flexible nutrition approach, which does encompass the process of tracking your macros in order to ensure you're eating the right amount for your specific goals. Because while a good amount of our clients are fat loss focused goals, we also work with a lot of performance individuals, some people who are just trying to optimize overall health. So, the amount that they need to eat for these different goals and their different lifestyles and such is different. So in general, the process of tracking macros for a majority of clients, focusing on flexibility in their food choices, but also flexibility in their strategies. So I have clients who really, thought they wanted to track macros, found that maybe this isn't a sustainable approach for them. So we adjust strategy a little bit. And I think the biggest takeaway that I want my clients to know is that tracking your macros is a temporary tool. It is a temporary tool that allows us to build understanding of our intake and our eating habits. It allows us to better understand the makeup of our foods. People will start tracking macros and be like, oh, peanut butter isn't a protein, primarily protein, things like that. It allows us this better understanding that allows us to navigate our nutrition from a more educated place, build really positive habits that we can then translate over into life beyond tracking. So I try to make that really clear, yes, we are tracking our food right now, but this is not a forever thing. What are the takeaways that we're gaining from this process of tracking, and how can we then translate those over to time beyond tracking?
I love that. I have gone through periods of my journey where I take breaks from tracking, right? Or I'm not as rigid or meticulous about it, but I love that it's always a tool in my tool belt, right?
Right.
I can always pull it out at any time and be okay, I can get back on track with this. I also have found personally that if I don't track, I tend to undereat. So for me,
it's super helpful.
Super helpful. And I think sometimes people have tracking and restriction collapsed as one and the same, when actually tracking might be about eating more food, because your appetite can actually not always be the correct indicator of how much you need to eat.
Right. So I think something that correlates really well with this topic of undereating is the understanding that a majority of our year, a majority of our time should be spent eating at maintenance. That is a fact. We should periodize our nutrition in a way that when we pursue a goal like a fat loss goal, that we do so consistently with good adherence, efficiently and safely and healthily, so that we can then go back to maintaining that progress we've made. So the majority of our time should be spent at maintenance. And that's a really great opportunity to, loosen the reins on tracking if we feel comfortable doing so. Or like you said, if our default is to undereat, then use it as this loose tool to make sure we're eating enough. That's why our nutrition is so individualized, because we all have different tendencies. We all have different challenges. And it can be really helpful to have this little tool on deck when needed, just kind of get yourself in check.
Yes, for sure. I love that. So what are some of your favorite macro-friendly meals?
This is a hard question, because I always have to think about, what does macro-friendly mean? Because I put out macro-friendly recipes and cookbooks and all of that. And really what I've defined it as is it has a central protein source and then probably some higher volume foods around it. And so for me, it's been very cool to move here to Mexico, where food choices are just infinitely different, where I often don't know what I'm eating as much, And so I default to these habits I've created through tracking of okay, I'm going to go out to eat, no idea what is on this menu, but I'm going to choose something with a protein. I'm going to try to get a side of veggies, and then I'm going to go lighter on those more calorie dense things on the side. So I would say for me, because I have that experience tracking in the past, and because I've created these habits, just about every meal seems macro friendly, because I've just kind of learned to default, lean back on these habits I've created, and know that, there's my protein, there's a veggie, I've got enough carbs, there's a fat source here, this is a balanced meal, we're good to go. So I don't know that I have a specific answer for that, because I also don't know what I'm eating half the time here.
Yeah, I love that though, because that's a really good guiding principle for eating out or traveling, which I see stress out a lot of my clients, and they have fear around it. And I'm like, girl, you can go to a restaurant and always find a healthy option, right? Sometimes you have to ask them to maybe make something a little different, or you're like, hey, can I get a side of steamed broccoli with this instead of fries? And just make simple little requests. But we don't need to know the exact composition of everything we're eating. When we're out, I always tell my clients it's about the ballpark. That's more important, right?
Absolutely. I agree with that so much.
Okay. So do you have any kind of secret macro strategies or anything that you could teach us about tracking macros that would be helpful or fun?
I think is really helpful to understand, as we use the process of tracking to build more understanding of our nutrition, is to understand differences in the volume of our food. So there are high volume foods out there, like fruits and veggies and whole grains, that are higher in fiber, they're higher in water content, and they're going to keep us satiated longer. They're going to keep us full longer, because think about a big old salad with a ton of veggies on top and grilled chicken. That's a lot of volume. Sometimes I'll eat a salad out of literally the serving bowl of salad, a big old salad. So if you are in a dieting phase, in a fat loss phase and in a calorie deficit, and maybe having some feelings of hunger, we should gravitate towards more of these high volume foods to keep us full, to keep us satiated, to keep us full of micronutrients, to get our fiber in, etc. On the other end of the spectrum, we have more calorie dense foods, take a protein bar that might have the same exact calorie and macro content as that huge salad in a serving bowl, but in a tiny little volume of food. So if we have the tendency to undereat. If you're not feeling hungry, but now you need to eat more, we can gravitate more towards those low volume foods. Sometimes that might look like liquid calories, like a shake or a smoothie or Gatorade or whatever. And so having an understanding of how the volume of food impacts us and our hunger signals and our fullness signals can be really, really helpful, because it allows us to better navigate those fluctuations in appetite we might have, as well as the fluctuations in intake we might have for different periods of time, like a fat loss phase versus a maintenance phase. Or sometimes I will be training for maybe more an endurance type race or something and need to eat more, but I'm not as hungry. And so I will gravitate more towards the liquid calories, the protein bars or the granola bars. Or if I just finished a big old ride or something and I'm starving to death, I'm going to gravitate towards more high volume foods to keep me full and things like that. So I don't know if that's a tip or trick, but I think that's something that's like an educational piece of understanding our food composition that goes a long way, because then you know whether I'm out to eat, whether I'm having a busy day and don't have time to track, whether I'm on vacation, etc. Like I know how to kind of manipulate my food choices to address my hunger levels.
I love that. Volume is such a key concept. And I snacked on a bag of popcorn the other night and I planned it in my macros because I knew I wanted to like sit on the couch with my friend and like watch my reality TV show. And I just wanted to snack the whole time. I knew that. And so I got like the bag of popcorn that was low fat, no salt, because like that fit better with my macros. I just feel better with lower salt. And it was so satisfying to get to eat so much popcorn.
Yeah.
It was like 300 calories of popcorn, but if I'd eaten like 300 calories of chips, it would not have been as satisfying.
Right. It would be like 2 handfuls.
Yeah. It'd be like, like 1.5 candy bars. So Kate, it's been so great having you on the show today. I know that you are going to help so many women with all of these nuggets. How can people connect with you if they want to learn more from you?
Yeah, so I hang out a lot on Instagram. My Instagram is @KL Nutrition. And then you can also find like a ton of free resources. I've got cookbooks and blog posts and all that good stuff on my website at katelymannutrition.com. And yeah, that's it.
Awesome. And we'll link those in the show notes. Thank you so much for being here and good luck with climbing that volcano.
Thank you. And thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to connect with you more, so follow me on Instagram at Heather McConaughey and send me a message saying hello. If you loved today's episode, please rate and review the podcast so I can reach and help more women. Remember, when you prioritize self-care, everyone wins.